So Kyle just dropped some millennial reference or something. No, he's post. What is your generation? What is his generation?
It's Gen Z technically, but I
Okay.
was born in 99.
Some
99,
Gen Z
so yeah.
reference that Kaylani and I. Okay, I should just say I have no clue what he's talking about, and Zach knows all about it. So
He's in the in. I don't know. I'm like an old lady, and my husband is hip and with it, and that's the balance.
and he's older, right?
Yeah, he's a few years older. Yeah.
Well, I like to think that I'm in, but I
think you're more in than me too, and you're also older. So there's obvious.
I'm like way older.
I know. I think that it's like a Midwest thing. Like the Midwest sets you back like a decade. So I'm really like a boomer. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That math doesn't add up. But umami.
Umami. So those of you that are watching this, gonna watch this real time, we're learning what umami is. Kaylani's Googling it.
Well, no, Zach helped Google it for us. But I mean, I know it's for seasoning and it's like a salty seasoning for things. But tell us what it means in like a slang. What does Urban Dictionary say?
So umami is a word that was first used in 1912. It has nothing to do with Gen Z.
Oh.
And it means savory, and also the word is Japanese. So you guys,
oh my gosh.
You should.
He is just said that the word is Japanese.
And it was invented
so
in
I should have
1912.
known. And it just means savory?
No.
It means savory?
Savory.
Oh. So so he was saying that we sounded savory?
I asked him if I sounded sultry, and he said I sounded umami.
Oh.
Okay,
Tasty, savory.
I'm gonna use that in a sentence this week.
Ah, yes. Oh my gosh, I love learning new words. This is fun.
Umami. But that's also something that you would say in a delightful moment with a woman.
So in the midst of lovemaking, you're going to be like, umami. No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I had a friend who told me once that there's heavy petting going on, and I believe it was like, would you like to make coitus?
Coitus?
Coitus.
What is
That's
that?
like a scientific term for getting it on. But it's not what you want to say in the midst of passion.
Yeah, the last emotion you want to incite in the middle of fornication is confusion.
Yeah.
It's like, huh?
my
Don't worry about it, baby.
gosh.
Just umami.
Just do umami. Go with it.
Yeah.
Keep it umami.
I want to hear you say ooh daddy. Sorry.
Oh, that was so good. That was funny. Oh man, you'll find all of these nonsensical things on merch someday,
Yeah.
and you can be nonsensical
Umami,
and delightfully dysfunctional.
Ooh daddy.
Oh god. Oh boy, and then oh man, yeah, but that should be the label on umami that we sell. We're gonna be umami distributors.
Oh my gosh.
Boom.
Yes. Kyle, you are
Take notes,
you have the
boys.
Midas touch.
Look at this.
He's gonna
Thank
get
you.
royalties.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you spell umami? Because I wrote it like I spelled it OOMAMI.
It's a U. I know it's a U.
Yeah, it does start with you.
Okay, it starts with me.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm blushing, Kyle.
That is actually a brilliant shirt right there. Umami starts with you.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Savoriness
For
starts
those of
with
you
you.
that can't hear Zach, he said that's a brilliant shirt. Umami starts with you.
Yeah.
It's making itself.
Exactly. Zach is my husband and a producer, and we also have Kyle. Kyle, what would our official
what is
word
your
for
title?
you be?
Video editor, producer, I
Okay,
guess.
I
And
should
also,
say-
No.
you can hear this. It's our track is being recorded too, so you can put it in your podcast if you want.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Hi, guys.
Yeah,
They're
all this is
here
being
with
recorded.
us. I didn't need to be repeating things. Oh, I didn't know that they were being recorded. I
Oh,
love
you guys are
that.
being recorded?
Yes, I know.
Oh, okay, sweet. This is awesome. No, Kyle, your official term is now ooh daddy.
Thank you. I'm fine with that.
He's fine with that.
Kyle, the official ooh daddy.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. So funny.
Are you the ooh uncle then or something?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Ooh
We
uncle.
need to play around with this. We got to finesse it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome, curious humans. I'm Kaylani, and I'm here with James. We are ready for another episode of Delightfully Dysfunctional. And today's topic is self-esteem and self-worth. This will probably go into more than one episode, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And there's just so many interconnected things on this topic. I'm super excited.
Me too.
Yeah. One thing, I'm in this experiment of the podcast and in just enjoying the fun of it, it's really created other possibilities in my mind that are exciting and have me, my relationship with my self-esteem is shifting. And that's a really cool thing to observe. Yeah.
Okay, unpack that.
Yeah, sure. COVID happened. I left a huge school that I worked at as an elementary counselor to do private practice, and then I had a baby. So my world really got smaller in terms of the people I would interact with, and I noticed how it affected my self-esteem. I really thrive in collaboration and feedback and like working with people. So just the momentum of the last year and being having enough sleep and capacity to take any steps in that direction has been really fun to see the possibilities that come from like each little baby step.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has just reminded me I love learning. I am such a nerd and I love learning. And so the thought of getting a PhD had been in the back of my mind. Yeah. And I've been a lot more curious lately about looking into programs and like, well, what if? Like, what could happen? So I guess that's what I mean is just the cool possibilities that you see emerge when you just let yourself have fun.
Yeah, I agree. This whole thing has been really exciting and fun. We're getting a lot of positive feedback, and I'm really enjoying the collaboration between me, you, Zach, and it's just I personally I thrive off being creative, so it's nice to like to make new things, you know. But it's been fun. So far. It could be awful next week, you know.
Man.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, so in our conversation about self-esteem, let's define it first.
Okay.
It's confidence in one's own abilities or that feeling of self-worth, self-respect. So these are all terms that I think are kind of woven up into similar conversations and ideas. And what a lot of people notice is and what the last Therapist React reel that we just watched too, like when with children, like typically we see tiny humans not being affected by low self-esteem if they're in a healthy environment that like can mirror for them that they're important and valued. These are things that we start noticing maybe as a generalization into like late elementary up into middle school and high school. And part of that is a biological reason. Like biologically, for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years, we survived in these tribes where it made sense for you to care about what your fellow members like thought of you and your usefulness to the tribe. That like biological kind of switch that's flipped during that time frame, it's not It affects us in a negative way if we don't understand it now. So we see this huge rise in anxiety and depression with our youth. And this is just one element of it. There are so many other pieces to that topic, but I think we can all understand. So let's both start with like where we maybe noticed our self-esteem wavering in that time frame. So when you think back to like adolescence, is that were there moments where your self-esteem wavered, or were you always extremely confident? Because that would be weird, but I'd want to know more about that too.
You know, well, like, as you're talking, I had one thought first, where I kind of observed that I wonder if kids have high self-esteem and lots of confidence because they haven't like attained as much pain and trauma. Because I've noticed that when there's more trauma, that really destroys confidence and self-esteem. But then for me, I kind of, the way that I would navigate through my life would be to just suppress the pain. So it never really affected my self-esteem. I always kind of knew who I was. But then the last couple of years, but also at the same time, I was pretty successful at people pleasing. So then I was always validated by other people. And so the last couple years, when things started falling apart in that world, that really destroyed my self-esteem and my confidence. And so I isolated as a result of it. So then I think that progressively over my life, I just, like I said, I successfully people pleased. And then when that all came crashing down, that's when but then the way that I sort of recovered from that was really looking inward and figuring out my self-worth. And so now I think I'm way more in touch with my self-esteem because I've had to validate myself for the first time in my life, which is weird. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. When you were talking about like kind of disassociating or like shoving things under the rug, that can be also a skill that helped you thrive and survive during that time. And I think oftentimes it is something in adulthood where all of a sudden we're not coping as well with the things that we thought we were able to do well. And it's really just this reminder of, oh crap, the skills or the things, the tools that I was using that worked for so long, they're not working anymore. They don't serve me anymore. And this like awakening. And part of what you have to do to get to that point is so much self-awareness. And like, why do I do that?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Like, how could I be more aware of it? All of these different questions that are really important. And these are questions when it comes to self-esteem that we should sit with.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, this is all new thoughts at this very moment that I just realized that. So, I need to sit with this for a little bit.
Well, I think you have, because you've shared some like more like thoughts of realizing, oh, well, that's what I did. And now I don't do that now, or I've worked on it. Or like you mentioned in previous episodes, like the impact of the way that you were raised and wanting that positive so that's the type of work we're talking about. And I think a lot of people can be on that autopilot, which maybe you can maybe you can understand that feeling too in the times or the years when it would be repressed. So that was, thank you for sharing. For me, as I'd mentioned in some previous episodes, I just felt really different where I grew up for multiple reasons. It wasn't that anyone there were some people that maybe treated me as being different, but not my whole community. I grew up in a very cute little quaint northern Minnesota town, this little Midwest town, but I felt incredibly different as the one with the weird name, with the weird farm, with the like very kind of complicated family, and the one like I wasn't in this homogenous community. I stuck out. So I really dove into books. Books were my friends, and I was like the nerd. I have some really nerdy, kind of like cringy stories about how like reading the book down the hallway. I was that kid. Like yes, I know. Yeah, your
with a really, really heavy backpack.
Yes, I was like the nerdy choir kid. I feel really like those, but like I loved reading. I was a voracious reader, and a couple of the books that I read really helped that. As I was thinking about what I wanted to share in this episode, I realized, well, these were really the tenets that helped me. One of them that I'll reference quite a bit is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Have you heard of him before?
No.
He's an old dead man. But
yeah.
It's a wonderful book that is about his struggle during the Holocaust in a concentration camp. But he was a psychologist, and he also took the time to like observe what helped people survive and how do we have meaning in the hardest of times. And I read another book called Left to Tell that was by Immaculée Ilibagiza, and it was about surviving the Rwandan genocide. So I was into these super dark books, but it was about the human perseverance. It was so like magical to hear their insights through that. And I think that we should lean in and understand that more because, boy, humans can go through hard stuff and survive.
Yeah. Our resilience, human resilience is like mind blowing. Okay. Hold on. So there's young Kaylani in high school with your nose in a book.
Yeah.
And these are the books you're reading in high school?
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive. That's amazing. I mean, in high school, you got guys that your friends were probably more worried about like doing a keg stand that weekend or something.
I mean, we were doing bonfires. Bonfires was the cool thing back in, the backwoods of northern Minnesota. But yeah, that was me. I don't know. See,
I was the opposite. I was one of those people that would have organized a bonfire.
Yeah.
And I would have been the douchebag who showed up with my car, my speakers and stuff and been like, hey,
I mean, I'd still go to the bonfires, but after my book was done.
Yeah. You would sit there. You'd be like, I've always loved the book By the Fire.
By the fire. Everyone's around me. Like, oh my God. That is not far off of how I probably would have wanted the night to go, but I would at least try to put the book down. But yeah, there's a lot of stories like that, and I have tried to reel it in. So anyways, these are just some of the things that helped me. I learned some cognitive behavioral techniques, and that really helped. And I want us to be able to figure out how we can incorporate that. Yeah. So I think that there are some really key principles when we're wanting to have healthier self-esteem. One is we have to identify that like critical or mean voice in our head.
Yes.
The thing we would never say to someone else. The thoughts in my head, I would never say to someone else.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think is important to really highlight that is to think about someone you care about. Like a child, I think, is an easy one. Think about a child you really care about and that you love and you want good things for them. How would you feel if that was the voice in their head?
Yeah.
Right? It would crush you. It'd be like, no, sweet child. No, that's not true.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if you think about being the person that would say some of the mean things in your head to them, never.
Mm-hmm.
You would never. We have to start treating ourselves like that sweet child that like we're sacred.
Yeah.
We're like, why would we be cruel to ourselves in that way?
You know what's crazy is I was literally having the same conversation with my friend who struggled with anxiety his whole life yesterday. And because I had heard a similar analogy of like big you, little you. So my friend, he's got a couple boys, and I said, because anxiety a lot of times is really like the voice, the story you're telling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I heard this thing where they're like, okay, imagine those voices. Imagine your anxiety is a child. It's little you. Yeah. And they're coming with all these fears. Like, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to pretend like it's my son, my oldest son, Judah. And he's like, Daddy, I'm afraid that we're going to run out of money. And I'm afraid that like this is going to happen, this and that. And then, yeah, like you said, I would never go to him and be like, yeah, you're probably right. You should really dwell on that. It sounds terrifying, and stay terrified. Yeah, you would go, no, like we're gonna be okay. You're gonna comfort. So the idea of having big you be the louder voice, and little you is always gonna drop by and with their fears, but yeah, they can't be the dominant voice in your head.
Yeah, and there's some inner child healing there too. We'll need to dedicate several episodes to some of those pieces, but I think like there are different theories of counseling or just philosophies that would name this voice different things. Stutz would call it, Stutz are the tools. If you've seen the Netflix documentary, I highly recommend. He would call it Factor X.
Oh, yep. Uh-huh.
In CBT, we would say like dysfunctional thought patterns. There's a lot of ways that we can label this and have a way of mapping it out. But essentially, there's that critical inner critic that we have in our head, and we have to identify it so that we can basically say like, no, that's like poppycock. Stop. That's not logical. So I think it's good to understand a lot of these like types of dysfunctional thoughts, which will, again, I think we'll have to go in more depth at some point. But for example, that black and white thinking, I mentioned that one before. Another few that are really common are catastrophizing. We've talked about that, like something that's small and my brain is building it up like this really big emergency. Disregarding the positive. That's one that's really common. Just any good thing I've done or good thing in my day, doesn't matter. I'm only going to focus on these pieces here.
Yeah.
So these aren't logical ways of thinking. They're unhelpful. They create a lot more anxiety and insecurity. And it seems weird perhaps that our brain is doing that, but these are some of them like just mental tricks that our brain plays on us, and we have to understand them to navigate it.
Yeah.
So the next thing is thought stopping that we need to try and practice. Like, once we can recognize it and we can practice metacognition, I'm thinking about my thoughts and say, nope, we have to find a way to stop, shift, refocus, self-soothe sometimes, evaluate the evidence. We have to kind of walk ourselves through it. I feel like I rambled a lot right there,
No,
James.
no.
What are your thoughts? Am I making any sense?
I'm so into what you're saying.
Am I
though.
making sense?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm just taking it. I'm learning.
No, it's good. I just feel like sometimes I'm like, Kaylani, take a breath.
No, it's wonderful. Everything you're saying is awesome. Okay. Yeah. So I was just thinking like how I have. Well, my first thought was like I like what you said about the different philosophies of mental health, and I love that there's been like years and decades of people who earnestly have observed the human experience, and they all kind of come to the same conclusions and like name them different things, and like it's just crazy because it's objective reality. Like everyone deals with that voice inside your head, but then also like how do you successfully combat that? Which I think definitely anxiety and self-esteem are interconnected, right? Would you say that's?
Yeah, I think so. I very much think so. Yeah. I think it's interconnected in that kind of an uncertainty about oneself or one's ability to handle something or navigate something.
Well, like, and so in my own personal observations of my own head, I've noticed that, and I don't know if this is like 100% accurate or like 99%, but whenever anxiety flares up internally, I've noticed that it's usually because I believe a lie somewhere. So then the game becomes trying to identify that lie, and then you dig and dig and dig and like probe, and then you arrive on the lie and you go, oh, I'm afraid that if I run out of money, I'm not going to have any value as a human. And that's a lie, you know? And so then you start to unpack that. You're like, you know what? And then it like becomes like this, all of a sudden the scales shift in like, here's confidence, here's no confidence, you know? And
but I mean, that's your curious human superpower at work right there, really. And so it's the ability to like be curious about that without being so uncomfortable that you back out and go into some kind of indulgent activity. Like, this is uncomfortable. I'm going to go on my phone. I'm going to play a video game.
I mean, I do that.
Well, I mean, guilty as well. But I think that it's the times when we choose to lean in and do that uncomfortable work and just the practice of just trying in the tiniest way each time to lean in and come back to that's the muscle we're trying to strengthen.
Well, and also like just as a friend to somebody else dealing with anxiety, for me it's like a fun game when they're telling me about like I'm feeling anxious and I'm like, okay, hold on, let's try this. Okay.
Yes, you're feeling anxious. Yay.
But see, like that's a game of curiosity almost.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, let's figure out where if there's a lie. Let's just and start asking questions. And then pretty soon, I've noticed that there usually always is some lie deeply embedded in them.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, and then it's almost like this. You found the nerve ending, and when you start like directly attacking that lie, then it's almost like tickling the nerve ending. Sorry, that sounds weird. I have a visual. Never mind. Okay.
I'm going with it. No, well, I mean, so the thought that we're kind of playing around with the most in this conversation is CBT. And CBT, if we picture a triangle, here's our triangle.
Wait, hold on. What does CBT stand for?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you. Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
And it's been really common lately. I'll say, like, I think that there are fads and like, oh, this is the latest theory and this is the latest theory. CBT is an evidence-based theory. I do find that it has a lot of merit and can be very helpful. I choose a pretty eclectic approach, and so there's like several different counseling theories that I really like to pull from and make sense with and play around with. But CBT is great. So if we picture this triangle, the top corner of our triangle, we'll say, is thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we follow that line to the bottom right part of our triangle, we'll say that that's feelings.
Okay.
And then that links to the left of behavior.
Okay.
And so
I'm drawing this.
basically our thoughts, if we were drawing arrows, beautiful. I love it. I mean, that's a wonky triangle. I mean, you might have to take some lessons there.
My
Go
whole
back
life
to
is
kindergarten.
wonky.
I'm just it
Good.
looks kind of like a poop emoji.
Okay, which would be
Hershey
appropriate,
kiss,
right?
Yeah. Anyways, so our stinking thinking affects the way that we feel, and then that affects our behavior. So even as you're talking about like, oh, I have this fearful thought and that's affecting how I feel, it's making me anxious,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's going to result in usually no kind of productive or helpful behavior if that thought is dysfunctional.
Yeah.
So anyways, in CBT, it's really about how do we play around and shift the thought. I
Okay.
like to kind of come from it from all angles too. It is uncomfortable to take the first step, the first action step.
Mm.
And so I think that other times our thoughts, especially our anxious thoughts, are not reliable sources of information.
For sure.
Our emotions are also not always reliable sources
Right.
of information.
They're good like compellers into action,
Yeah.
but
Exactly. They can still inform us, but
Yeah.
I don't think that I should be making every decision based just on my emotions.
Right.
That would be a very chaotic picture.
mm-hmm.
So I also feel that, yeah, it's uncomfortable and do it anyways. Like if you need, like, take an action step. Now, how do we know what step to take?
Yeah.
How do we know which direction to go in? That's about like knowing ourselves better. I think a lot of poor self-esteem comes from not being aligned in our values and in who we are, letting the people pleasing take over and rule to the point of not knowing who is Kaylani, who is
Yeah.
James, and like realizing this incongruence and how we are being isn't aligned with who we want to be
Mm-hmm.
and isn't aligned with even there's not always an intention even between thinking like, oh, I want to be a certain person. It's only fueled with like, I want to be liked.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we need to pay attention to. Like, well, are your actions and your motivations fueled by your values? I really like Brene Brown's values list, and you
Mhm.
can find it on her website. We can make it available too. I think I've created one. So if I think about it, I'll put a freebie on my website and we can link that too. But to go through and really identify, like, I usually say 10, but if we're doing an abbreviated version, we could say 5 and
Okay.
say like, okay, what are the 5 qualities that are really me? And how can I lean in a little bit more to some of those areas that maybe aren't operating at 100%?
Yeah.
Be really intentional and like align a plan so that you can feel that you're moving in that direction. Self-esteem comes from esteemable actions that are created and that are fueled by the things that you care about.
Yeah.
And if we're not doing that, it makes a lot of sense to me that we're going to feel pretty crappy about ourselves if
Yeah.
we're unaligned, and that it's going to create that anxiety.
Yeah. So okay, so the characteristics chart or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it like we're gonna pick 5 that we want to attain eventually, like we strive for?
When I do 10, when I ask in a session with clients, I'll often say 10,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll want us to narrow down to 5.
Okay.
Because I think it's good for us to highlight the ones that maybe need more focus.
Okay.
But if we want to practice this, you and I, then I'm going to say 5. And just like, what are the top 5 most important things that you want to emulate? Or maybe another good way of saying it is, like, what do you want to be known for? How do you, like, what feelings do you want to cultivate within yourself and others?
Yeah.
Those are some good ways to kind of find it. what that might be. Let's see. Do you?
I only have one. I just want to be a billionaire. That's it. I feel like it'll solve all my problems, right? No.
Well, if that were the case, then we'd have. I'm going to dive into that. Let's pretend if that were the case, then we would have like the billionaires or the wealthy people of the world. There wouldn't be suicides. People wouldn't be killing themselves. They wouldn't be depressed and sad.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing a lot of people who continue to be depressed, sad, anxious, or fuel into addiction because they have unresolved issues, even though they got dollars in the bank account. So is that what would really make someone happy? Does that make us happy?
What if I promise to deal with all that stuff if I become a billionaire? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
I need you to sign something in your blood. I need a blood oath.
Okay, I'll be serious. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Okay, so I think that this would be a fun activity. We could revisit this and maybe in the next episode because it's going to give us a pause. Here, yeah, I know. I'm going to have to like really I was going to say really probe because that was the word that you used and it feels funny to say it. Those are some of the really important, I think, first steps when we lean into figuring out what do we even care about? What kind of life do we want to live? And how can my actions align with that better?
Well, and because if you don't know where you're headed, then you're just going to kind of be washed by the waves,
Mm-hmm.
Like I did something that I think is similar. I think I shared before, like my level 5, level 0 thing, where I wrote down specific characteristics. Let me find it here. It's in this notepad. I wrote down specific characteristics that I want to become that I have within me, but I allowed like my level 0 to be the to overpower. And I won't read them all, but
what's one of them that you have decided I'd like to focus on that? I'd like to improve that
like I noticed that it's in steps. So my first step 1 was rejects impulses. And then also let's see here. I wrote
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
I think I've said it before, but I'm not sure would that be the same thing as discipline? Because I've redefined discipline for me a little bit, and that kind of matches my definition now. Rejects impulses.
I don't know. I would say discipline is more like offensive, and rejects the impulses would be more defensive. Because if I just reject my impulses, I think you're right. I think it does go with discipline because discipline is also defensive, right? Because
I don't know. I've mentioned I don't do sports, so I was really having to think about the.
Well, I'm saying to keep the attacks away.
Yes.
Discipline would also align with your desires to go. Let's use fitness for example. If I want to sleep instead of go to the gym or whatever, if I want to eat a dozen donuts that day. Discipline would be rejecting those impulses. Yeah, so I guess it's the same thing.
So, it's like kind of withholding the need to have that thing right now or rejecting the impulse.
Yeah.
I guess that fits better with me. That feels more attainable than kind of, I guess, the previous vibe energy I got from discipline was do it, doesn't matter, just do it, like drill sergeant kind of energy. And this feels more like, okay, no, you don't eat the cookie right now, you're gonna survive, or
well, it's more like honoring, respecting your impulses, knowing that they are powerful, and having the discipline to overcome them.
When we're aligned with the thing that really sparks us and lights us up, that is going to show up in those values too, it's a lot easier to deny those things that are tempting as an impulse too. When you feel passionate about the thing you're doing, it's a lot easier to focus in on that. So if someone doesn't have that identified, again, it's equally as easy to get distracted and fall into, that autopilot in this, I'm just going to just eat my bonbons and watch my TV. I make that joke. I'm like, there's a lot of ways to have dysfunctional things. That's mine. That's why I mentioned it, because like
eat bonbons
I just
want to
eat like yeah. I mean, it sounds great.
Do they still make bonbons?
I don't really know.
Oh, they have chocolate covered ice cream.
Yeah,
but rejecting impulses like in the context of like an addiction, because that was kind of my thing, as I shared in a previous episode. I like, so let's say, for example, you're addicted to cigarettes. Like your impulses might get you to drive out of your way toward the gas station that you always buy your cigarettes or something, you know. But like if you reject the first impulse, that's going to lead to the next impulse, and then all your walls are down at that point, then you're going to be a lot more safeguarded.
Yeah.
Because like the self-talk I would have, I would always say, no, James, we're not doing that anymore. That is level 0 bullshit. That's what I would tell myself. And so that would always snap me out of whatever impulse I was feeling. And then I started incrementally, day by day, getting further and further away from that thing. And it was starting to starve to death, those impulses.
It's getting easier.
So today, I'm like a million miles away from that, which I'm so thankful for. But it really took forward motion and like one step at a time. So that was step 1. And I still have it every single day, but it's not nearly as strong as it used to be. Yeah.
I really like the ranking system and the way you would talk to yourself about it, because there's an alignment with the idea of where you're wanting to go, just intrinsically woven in, right? So like you're in the like, you don't want to, that's level 0 behavior, or the way that self-talk sounds. It's saying my reputation with myself and the agreement that I've made to the values that I hold is more important than this just passing impulse.
Yeah.
And I think that's discipline.
Yeah.
Someone put that on a mug.
That's discipline.
Sometimes I say something and I'm like, what did I say? I blacked out. But I mean, like, I think that describes like self-esteem and discipline. Again, it's like, it's a little woven up ball of twine of all of it is so interconnected.
And like, there's no better feeling than when you have compounded one day after on top of another, to the point where now you have like you've come so far, and your self-esteem is affected by that in a positive way. You know, because like my level 5 that I wrote down, the way I came up with it was, I imagined, because where I was sitting in life at that moment was like the lowest valley of my life, deep depression. And I remember thinking, okay, I don't want life to be this way anymore. How do I want it to look in 1 year? And then I was like, okay, what is that guy who's in that moment a year from now? What does he look like?
Yeah.
And I was like, what does he act like? What does he sound like? Who's around him? And then I was like writing down these very specific characteristics. And then I was like, okay, well, be that guy today, because I'm not going to just accomplish all these things and then the guy's magically going to become the guy. The guy has to come first. And so like, I just imagined like, this is the guy who you want in the midst of your dark place, who's going to deliver you out of it. And so that's who I've been like really working super hard to be. And I think I'm pretty close to him now that I'm reading it. So
that's a really cool feeling. Give yourself a pat on the back, because I feel like we don't often, like, we can very much disregard our progress or forget about it and be focused on kind of the task or the challenge of the moment. And that's part of what I love and what I do, is I get to be the cheerleader who's like, do you remember when that was really hard for you? And now look at you. You're a badass. How cool is that? Let's celebrate.
What should we do to celebrate?
Yeah.
Drink some Indaba. Indaba coffee roasters.
Not a sponsor, but could be.
If you guys want.
There was, I'm going to kind of butcher it, but there was I think an Aristotle quote that was about like, the thing that we're most afraid of is like fully embodying who we are and what we can be, our potential. And so I think this is scary. This is scary work. Being self-aware is scary. Look at all of the ways that we try to hide it. We try to sweep it under the rug. We try to disassociate. We try to numb it. We try to escape from it. And so it's so funny that like this idea of vulnerability in this type of work is given this bad reputation of being like, I don't know, fluffy, I guess. And I'm like, no, this is hard and it's so beneficial because we're making vulnerability cool.
Yes, we
right?
are. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, okay. You use the word fluffy. Can you unpack that a little bit more for us?
I mean, I don't know. Unpacking fluffy. I guess I said that it's like vulnerability and sensitivity is viewed that way. I don't think that it's given enough value, I suppose.
Okay.
I don't think in
like it's wimpy. Would you?
Okay.
Okay.
It's seen as being wimpy, and I think that there's a difference between vulnerability and insight and action and healing.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that and a victim mentality.
Yeah.
And that is a big topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's a difference there, and we shouldn't be afraid to lean into the work. It can feel really scary and overwhelming, but you're not alone in that. You're not the first person to have walked the walk. You're not going to be the last.
Yeah.
And that's why this podcast is exciting for me, as being kind of an introduction or hopefully a welcoming to people in doing scary shit.
Yeah. Would you say, okay, because I feel like you're starting to approach radical acceptance.
I think that that's woven in very much to my like life philosophy for sure, because you have, and because a lot of like humility is very important to me too. And that's where balance and self-esteem comes as well, that we're not just operating out of ego, because ego says, I already know this.
Yeah.
And wants to just drown out curiosity and pull the plug. Like, an example that I heard earlier this week and I liked is when you're in a work conference or meeting and you're just thinking, I already know this.
I do that a lot.
I know. Oh, I reflected back and I'm like, yeah, guilty.
This could have been an email.
But instead, if we came into it with this perspective of, well, even if I'm learning something not to do, or I'm learning a different perspective, or I'm learning, how can we shift our perspective, because that's going to allow us to be more open. It's saying I can learn from anyone.
Yeah.
There's always a new perspective. There's always something interesting to take away.
Yeah.
So there's more to learn, and that cultivates curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think that curiosity element is so important in that, like, I was trying to say like less and listen to me.
Don't worry about it.
I heard it.
It's okay.
So I'm going to start doing a like count on
We're going to edit this out so that you guys don't hear.
No, it's okay. That cultivation of curiosity is so important because it's cyclical. Once you get that going, like the self-esteem improves. But if it's blocked, we can easily fall into that ego, and that's a very judgmental space. It's self-judgmental, so there's going to be more internal criticism. Self-esteem is going to decrease, and there's judgment towards others and comparison towards others, usually not in a flattering way, either in the, well, must be nice that they can do that, I can't, or oh, really? That happened to you? Wait till you hear about my weekend. Wait till you hear about how sick I was.
It's very me-focused.
It's a comparison of either whose life is crappier, woe is me, or a comparison of they don't really deserve that promotion, or they don't. That's ego.
Would you say that ego and victim are opposites, but they're on the exact same spectrum?
I think they're coming from the same source place for sure. Like a victim mentality is like entangled with helplessness and hopelessness.
It's like all this stuff happened to me, and then ego is like all this stuff I did. Like,
both rob the person of change and evolution. Yeah,
because I feel like I had my own situation where I was in victim mentality. I mean, and then where I looked at where my life was, and I looked at, I mean, some of the stuff like my dad dying, that was not my fault, and but I looked at a lot, like everything as stuff that happened to me.
Yeah.
But then my shift was, no, I'm responsible for like 95% of this. So if I want life to change, I need to make the opposite choices. So that was like a radical acceptance moment for me. And then, so then I wonder if, I mean, it's almost like an obvious statement, but then at the same time, I don't want to just make the statement. Would you say radical acceptance would be the solution to ego and victim mentality?
The solution, I think.
I guess that's a hard word.
Well, the solution. That's the part of what your question
that's black
is.
and white thinking.
I know that gets me a little bit stuck. I think that, curiosity, humility then isn't available, and so I think that leaning into that is the first step. But it's kind of a combination of things. I never want to feel like I know everything.
Yeah.
And that's maybe that's a radical thought. I don't know. I'm never going to know everything. So I'm hungry to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And there's if we picture kind of, for those who are listening and not watching as I gesture with my hands, if we picture a circle with another circle, bigger circle around it, and then that's inside a third circle.
Okay, like a target?
Like a target.
Okay.
Yeah. Our smallest circle in the middle, that's what we know.
Mm-hmm.
I know this for sure. Then we have a circle of things where, I know I don't know that. Like, I don't know physics 500. There's things I definitely do not know.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's what we don't know we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's things that we just have no idea yet. Mm-hmm. And we have to be open to what we don't know
mm-hmm.
and not just be like, no. That doesn't fit with me.
That's true. Like, always keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that allows for like shift in perspective. I guess one thing that frustrates me I feel like this is kind of maybe branching off from the true topic of self-esteem, but that's what you can expect here at Delightfully Dysfunctional. I feel like in society, when someone changes their perspective, and there's a lot of examples where this could be maliciously done, but I'm giving this thought that I think fits. But when someone shifts their perspective to a healthier place, society says, no, but they thought that other thing before.
Oh, they want to bring up your past or whatever.
Yeah, but you did it. You posted that mean tweet, or you said that thing, or, people who are like, you posted that slur or whatnot, but we've seen evidence in the 15 years that this person has learned and grown and updated their perception, and we're condemning them. And at the same time, aren't we wanting people to see our perspective?
Yeah.
Like, we can't want for people to be open-minded and at the same time slap them in the face when they've evolved and aren't stuck in the same unhealthy perspective.
Yeah.
That's counterproductive.
Well, unfortunately, I would say a large segment of the world's population is fueled by ego. So when they see somebody rise,
it's easy.
Yeah, when they see somebody like almost rise above them in their mind, there's a quote that says, "The only thing people love more than a rising star is a falling star."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so
I think for that same ego comparison that I was mentioning, right? It's either well, see, they deserve it. That I don't know. There's that righteousness in seeing that falling
there's a
star.
satisfaction when you see somebody who's really successful. Like, tabloids are so popular. I mean, I guess they're not in magazine form anymore, but celebrity gossip is so popular because if you can find a little dirt on somebody, that becomes absolute headline news. And but it's unfortunate because it just creates a culture with no grace and no gray area, because in my own failures, I saw a little bit of that where I probably appeared to be successful and well respected and everything. And then when that came crashing down, it was almost like you could feel that people were excited to see that. Oh, that this pretty boy, this golden boy, whatever, his life is ruined.
Yeah, that's hard. There's a family systems, I don't even know. I don't think this is a theory. I don't know what this would be called, thought of, we know about the black sheep in the family, but the white knight is this one who's lifted on this pedestal. And we don't think of this role as being a hardship. Must be nice to be praised all day, But this is equally as terrifying and hard in a lot of ways because that's a far freaking way to fall.
Well, they probably have way more secrets also.
There's so much anxiety in maintaining it, and there's that ego sense of like people pleasing and it being all externally driven.
Yeah.
If you're in that white knight type of state of mind. And so you're saying this was kind of how you felt, and
yeah. Well, that's why it's my personal mission to make vulnerability cool. Because imagine navigating through life where you just have nothing to hide, where where everyone knows the worst thing you did and they love you regardless of it. I mean, I feel like that's a world that we'll probably never witness.
I think it's a utopia,
yeah.
And I think but there's so many things right now that I feel is an unrealistic utopia. And again, if we can't change the outside world, we don't have control over that, but we can change the inside world. We can change our attitude. And that's what I think having healthy self-esteem is about. I guess the reason why I went into even this work was like at one person level, there can be so much ripple.
Yeah.
And so one person like understanding that there's such a ripple. And I think when we live authentically and we live, in the practice of doing these things, like people see it and it shows them that they can do it too. Like it's a gift for other people. Wayne Dyer was another author of a lot of books that I really liked in like middle school and high school. God, I am such a weirdo. No. Oh my gosh. I'm like, let me read all the. But one thing that really inspired
Kehlani, we need to talk about your self-esteem.
I know. Well, no, I just say it out loud and I'm like, I don't think I realized it as being as weird until I say it out loud. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, when I think about high schoolers and middle schoolers now, I can't picture them doing that. So that's why I lived on a farm with like 2 TV channels. Anyways, so his quote was, "You have a one-of-a-kind gift to offer this world, and you are unique in the entire history of creation." I'm going to say it again because I messed it up. "You have a one-of-a-kind gift to offer this world, and you are unique in the entire history of creation." Wayne Dyer. Like, that I loved that. Caused me to pause when I was young and really think about, well, I don't know, it aligned even with my people pleasing. It's a gift I'm giving the world, and what is it? And that helped kind of align some of those values and goals in a way that still felt okay.
It's okay. It's so crazy because like those 2 thoughts that what you just floated out, or like brings up 2 thoughts for me that have been really front and center in my focus the last couple days. And the first one, I saw, what's his name? Tyson, the space guy?
Oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes.
I saw him in person.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, at an event in Walla Walla. Anyways.
Okay. Well, he said, I saw this reel of him talking, and he said something like, you have your existence is a 1 in 400 trillion likelihood. And then I was like, okay, are you talking about like sperm cells? But then, but regardless, so the fact that you're even here in the first place is a long shot. And so, and then I saw this other reel, completely unrelated, where this guy was talking about like what it means that you have a gift for the world. Because for some reason, whenever I would think I have a gift, I would always think I've been given a gift. And it's my job to open the gift for me, and this is my gift. But what he said is that, like, no, you have a gift that is gift wrapped that you need to present to the world. And I don't know if that's an obvious statement to all of those of you listening, but for me, that was like a mental shift. I was very like inwardly, selfishly focused with that.
Yeah, I think the word gift, I can see how there can be different interpretations of that there. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, but it is very true. Go back to that Dr. Seuss saying, "You are you. That is truer than true. There's no one alive who's youer than you." And like, if you don't do you, then no one else will. No one else can. Only you can offer the world you. But the trick is figuring out who you are. What is your gift that you can offer the world, right?
Yeah, and that's can feel daunting and overwhelming, but I don't think that it needs to. It doesn't have to feel even like a pressure to do so.
Yeah, I think it sounds exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I feel excited by it. It's what helped me feel excited and kind of have more momentum down this path. But I work with a lot of young adults who are scared of that idea. I think on one hand, there's this idea that it's either confident or cocky, and there's no in between. And I think that's where if we can invite, cocky is that ego of like, I'm always right. So you can be confident or have good self-esteem, but maintain curiosity.
Yeah.
And that's not going to this place. Also, if someone is confident, haters going to hate. So like you have to learn how to just, I'm not their cup of tea. Cool. And kind of move on through it. And at the same time, know when I might want to I want to understand because it's going to help me be a better person or give me a different type of insight. We have to, what's the word I want to use? Be able to carefully, select and determine what is important for my energy. Well, this has been so fun to get to talk about these different topics that we are so excited about and have some insight, some differences, and even how we've practiced it personally.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a good place for us to wrap up for today.
Okay.
And we can pick this up next time because there will be a part 2 into diving into self-esteem. So thank you so much for being vulnerable, for being real, and for being curious.
Thank you for being you.
Thanks
and giving
for
us
being you.
giving us the gift of you.
All right. See you next time, curious humans.
Bye-bye.
Okay.